reteach me on how dating works in junior high and high school. Yeah, this should be fun, right? You're like, all right. So Danielle is helping me out yesterday afternoon as I'm putting this together. The first thing that she says is that when you're interested in somebody, they call it talking. Now, some of you all, if you say, well, I'm really older, and you have grandchildren, you're gonna be really cool this afternoon when you're like, so are you talking to a guy? What does that mean? So, talking. So, and of course, all you young people are like, yeah, of course I know what this is. But the old people don't, so me neither. So we're talking. So talking just means that you're basically, you're sometimes exclusive, but more often than not, you're not. And you're just getting to know somebody. And again, in the old days, you had to do this in person. Now you can do it with InstaSnap and FaceChat and ChatGram and all those other, exactly. Just showing you how old I am. But all those different types of tools you have now to work with. So my daughter's talking about talking. And that can go on for a little bit, but then you start to go talking. Oh, okay. Talking. Now if you're talking, now this is where you've done this for a couple weeks or whatever it is, however the time frame is, and now this can range, this next area, talking, from a couple weeks to maybe 6 or 7 months. And then at some point, somebody's got to take the risk, and they've got to basically say, you're going to go out with me. And then you become the third word, which is exclusive. So we've got talking, and we've got exclusive. Right, exactly. Some of you are like, I'm so glad I'm married. I get it. Look, would you agree it's hard to define a relationship when no one wants to take a risk? Sure. And that's what basically happens. How do we allow God to help us, and how does Ruth help us with taking a risk, which ended up being a very important risk that resulted in something incredible I'll mention at the end. So here's what I want to do with you here. I want to read Ruth chapter 3. We're going to read verses 1 to 14. We're going to go a little bit further than what the screen says. And then what I want to do is I want you to make sure you don't close this, but keep it open, because we're going to just kind of float around a little bit inside of here. All right, so again, that's on page 240, and we're going to begin at verse 1. Naomi, her mother-in-law, said to her, "My daughter, I need to seek some security for you so that it may be well with you." Let me translate what that means. You need a husband. That's all it means. So we got to get this figured out. Now, here is our kinsman Boaz, with whose young women you have been working. See, he is winnowing barley tonight at the threshing floor. Now wash and anoint yourself and put on your best clothes and go down to the threshing floor. But do not make yourself known to the man until he has finished eating and drinking. This gets weird now. When he lies down, observe the place where he lies, then go and uncover his feet and lie down, and he will tell you what to do. Yikes. All right. She said to her, "All that you tell me I will do." So she went down to the threshing floor and did just as her mother-in-law had instructed her. When Boaz had eaten and drunk, and he was in a contented mood, he went to lie down at the end of the heap of grain. Then she came stealthily and uncovered his feet and lay down. At midnight, the man was startled and turned over, and there lying at his feet was a woman. He said, "Who are you?" And she answered, "I am Ruth, your servant. Spread your cloak over your servant, for you are next of kin." He said, "May you be blessed by the Lord, my daughter. This last instance of of your loyalty is better than the first. You have not gone after young men, whether poor or rich. And now, my daughter, do not be afraid. I will do for you all that you ask, for all the assembly of my people know that you are a worthy woman. But now, though it is true that I am a near kinsman, there is another kinsman more closely related than I. Remain this night, and in the morning, if he will act as next of kin for you, good, let him do it. If he is not willing to act as next of kin for you, then, as the Lord lives, I will act as next of kin for you. Lie down until the morning." So, first thing that I learned in this passage, it's often wise to put yourself in the right place to increase the odds of meeting the right person and letting God do his thing. So I stole this phrase from a pastor named Craig Groeschel, okay? He talked about the words providence of God. Providence of God. And I was like, what does that mean? Here's how he defined it. He said, God uses natural circumstances to accomplish his supernatural will. I'll say that one more time because that really makes a ton of sense. God uses natural, everyday circumstances to accomplish his supernatural will. Let me give you my story, and then let's look at Ruth's story here. So let me tell you what I did when I was dating, okay? I didn't date much. I was a traveling salesman from 2001. In 2004, I get moved to the Midwest. I'm in Minnesota. I've been here a number of months, 6-9 months. And we didn't really have too much internet. I mean, we had a little bit starting, but there wasn't quite a lot yet. And so what I did is I didn't like bars. I didn't want to go hang out in those kind of places. I didn't drink. I just didn't find them that enjoyable. Not that there's anything wrong with it. I just didn't find them enjoyable. So what I did was I decided to find, at this time, the only Christian website that you could find to find babes, okay? At least Christian babes. It was called eHarmony. Now, as I was doing this, I was starting to laugh because I was thinking about, look, it's not perfect, and again, we live in an infallible world, so nothing is going to come just absolutely as easy as possible. Sometimes it does, but rarely does it come that easy. So I'm working through eHarmony. I answer all the questions. I start doing some dating. I did a 90-day kind of subscription, and my first 2 dates, as I was giggling as I was putting this together, the first one was I had asked a girl to go out to a concert. Well, they were all good, all good, all good. I called her the day of just to ask her, when to pick her up, that kind of stuff. I called her 7 times. She never picked up on the day of the concert. And the next day she called me back yelling at me that I stood her up. Yeah. The second one was even funnier. I'm probably the only guy that dated somebody from the Army that actually was a landmine finder. The average life in battle is less than a week. I'm like, yeah, you're probably not going to work out. And of course, again, but I'm putting myself in the right situation. It's not perfect, but I'm putting myself in that right situation. And then all of a sudden, this person starts writing pretty eloquently. She sounded intelligent. She wrote good. She talked good when we talked on the phone. She wouldn't put her picture up. But when she finally did, I went, oh my. That oh my, of course, is my wife today, which is Farah. And so we met on eHarmony about 19 years ago and have been married 18 years now. So it's kind of neat because, again, that's what I was looking for, that Christian woman. And in order for me to do that, I had to put myself in the right situation for that to happen. Now, let's look at Ruth. So I'm going to bounce here to chapter 2. So I just want to go back here so that we can kind of see a little bit of what's happening and how the setup works for this, okay? So verse 1 is a setup, okay? Me and my wife debated. I won't say argued because we were debating this a couple weeks ago. She felt that verse 1 was not a setup, but like Naomi, her mom, Ruth's mom in the Bible, knew the whole time. I don't believe so. I believe that the reader is being set up with this information, but I don't believe Ruth and Naomi know this. So again, you can decide how you want, but this is what I believe. It says now in chapter 2, verse 1, page 239, it says, now Naomi had a kinsman on her husband's side, a prominent rich man of the family of Elimelech, whose name was Boaz. Okay? And then it goes on, it says, and Ruth the Moabite said to Naomi, let me go to the field and glean among the ears of grain behind someone. In other words, someone. The reason why I think verse 1 is a setup is they didn't say Boaz. Did you notice that? They said someone. So I don't believe that they knew, in whose sight I may find favor. She said to her, go, my daughter. So she went. She came and gleaned in the field behind the reapers. So you've basically got this setup where Ruth has to go work hard because if she doesn't, her and Naomi are going to starve. That's literally it. So she's putting herself in a position to obviously help her and her family out, which in this case is her mother-in-law. And Ruth goes off, and she doesn't even realize. And then I love, again, how God uses the supernatural in the ordinary, right? In verse 3, I love this, the words here. They used it in the NIV. It said, so she went, she came and gleaned. Well, as it happened, I like the words used in the NIV as I was reading this, the New International Version. It said, as it turned out. I always love the words, as it turned out. That's, see, when I hear those words, Boaz happens to show up and be the guardian redeemer. And why is that so important? She had fields she could pick from to go and basically glean, which was basically like, it was a social safety net, where basically the poor people were supposed to come after the farmers and the harvesters because there was a little bit of stuff left over, and that was their version of, Medicaid and, food stamps, and that's literally what it was in the Old Testament. So, she's basically going to work. She just happens to pick the land and the farming of Boaz, who happens to be her guardian redeemer. Have you ever looked up to heaven and said, God, you knew all along, you stinker? Come on, we've all done that. Like, how did you? Oh, my goodness. Thanks. You knew the whole time. See, what a guardian redeemer is that it was a relative that was basically had we'll call it the responsibility, but it was also a privilege to help somebody in your family. Now, he was a distant relative, but he was able to help somebody because he had means and be able to scoop them up. Now, that doesn't mean you married them necessarily, but here's what I think is kind of funny. I'm sure I felt like by the time you get to verse 5 that he was really pretty happy, like he was feeling pretty good. And I'll talk about that just in a second. So that's the first thing that I learned. You got to put yourself in that right situation to get what you want, whether it be dating or anything else. And then have God be a part of it, using that providence that we talked about. The second thing I learned is sometimes you have to go after what you want. In other words, you really have to go for it. So here's what happens. Sometimes we think the Bible has nothing to do with our lives like today. Like, it's just old-fashioned. It has nothing to do with our lives today in 2024. And my answer to that is bull. Let me explain. Here's like they think the same way we do, okay? So let me read verse 5, okay, of chapter 2. Again, we're on page 239. Then Boaz said to his servants in charge of the reapers, who's the hottie? Tell me that's not what it says. It absolutely says, who's the hottie, okay? Ruth's probably 25 to 35 years old. I think she's closer to 35 to 40, but it doesn't matter. Boaz is 60. That's a hottie. That's a hottie. And here's what's funny. It says she is the Moabite that came with Naomi, who came back with Naomi from the country of Moab. Let me tell you what I'm reading into this as I was going through this. Okay, first of all, it's who's the hottie in verse 5. And then do you remember in high school when you would whisper to your buddy, and say, hey, who's the cutie over there? And what's her story? Can you go do me a favor and find out for me what's going on there and if I've got a shot? You all have done that. I don't care how old you all are. Every one of you has done that in this place. So I'm laughing because I'm going, this is exactly what he's doing. And so he's asking his group to find out. And then on top of it, he finds out that she's a hard worker. I mean, it says in there that she literally worked hard except for a water break. In other words, his entourage is following. They're keeping track of Boaz. So you know at this point, Boaz likes her. There's no doubt about it. So verse 11, if you go down into chapter 2, it says, but Boaz answered her, all that you have done for your mother-in-law after the death of your husband has been fully told to me. In other words, the entourage knows, all right? And they've been getting back to me with all my best friends have been telling me what's going on. And how you left your father and mother and your native land and came to a people you did not know before. To me, I think he's basically taking a risk out there and saying, hey, I really like you a lot. I really, really like you so much. So he takes a risk to pursue her, and he keeps, and it sounds good because it's like, okay, this is great. They're going to get to know each other real good. The harvest typically takes 2 to 4 months. 2 to 4 months before, they've gotten done with the harvest. So this could be a great relationship. It sounds great. Well, that risk that he started to take all of a sudden stops there. Then he ghosts her. Here's what's crazy. Until you get to chapter 3, when Naomi's scheming with Ruth to try and, get the cloak pulled over her, the corner of the bed pulled over, until they start scheming for all this, there's nothing. And in other words, 2 months of no communication. So Naomi tells Ruth to take a risk if you really want to be with Boaz. If you want to be with this Boaz guy, you got to take a risk for your sake and mine. So, again, I'm laughing about this with take a risk and applying to our lives today. So Naomi gives really good information for a great date night, okay? Here's the great information she gives in Ruth 3 verses 3. The first thing, now wash. So clean yourself up. That's what she's saying. So wash. Put on your best Eau de Jerusalem, right? Get those best Lululemons that you possibly got. Slide those on. And then we get to the next part, which again, I'm going to read Ruth 3 on page 240, verse 10. And it says, he said, may you be blessed by the Lord, my daughter. And then it says, and now my daughter, do not be afraid. I will ask what the assembly people. So basically, he goes through and he says, and I apologize, I'm just looking for where it's at. At midnight, he was startled. So verse 8, it says, at midnight, the man was startled and turned over because she had snuck in after the guy was fat and happy, right? He had his chicken wings. He had his, his 5 or 6 beers. And he was pretty happy and was ready to lie down. And so what's interesting is that 3:10 to 14 could be looked at as do whatever it takes to get the man. Now that sounds pretty seedy. I mean, pretty saucy, pretty like do whatever it takes. Most people don't believe that was the case. Most people believe that Naomi was saying, trust God's sovereignty. So when you curl up next to Boaz, after he's asleep, and you just lie at his feet, trust God to then make the next move. And so that's why I don't believe that they actually slept together or had sex that night, and most scholars will say that that's the case. The reason why they don't believe that is, and why I don't believe for sure, is they use the word noble character. In other words, Boaz says to Ruth, noble character. I don't think if you just did that, you did what you did with her that night, I'm not sure noble character would be the next words out of your mouth. So to me, I don't think there was anything that happened. But again, he was so thankful that she just laid at his feet and she asked him and took a risk by, number one, sneaking up in there. She wasn't supposed to. It says that later on. You weren't supposed to do that. That's kind of taboo. And then she just lies at his feet and then says, would you be my guardian redeemer? In other words, Boaz took a risk to tell her that she's a hottie. And she kind of said to him, hey, listen, I'm here. I'd really like this to go further. I mean, some will even say she might have been proposing at that point, basically saying, you want to be my guardian redeemer? I'm ready to get married. Ruth took a risk. Ruth, in fact, the line I thought about with Danielle when she was telling me this, Ruth decided they wanted to be exclusive and not just talking. It's kind of what it was. You know what's interesting? I'm going to say this to you all ladies because I'm going to bash on myself and all the testosterone that's going to be jumping and screaming in about an hour. Sometimes, ladies, you have to help the man move the relationship forward. And the reason why is here's the news flash. Most guys are insecure. That's true. It's just the way it is. So again, and by the way, insecure is one of the words I could use. Idiot. There's some other things for guys that I could use as well. But the point is that you kind of have to help that also, and that's what Ruth realized. I have a feeling that if you go in back there and see the emotion, it was like, I know he likes me. Why is he not doing anything more? And I think that's why she decided to do what she did. Here's the third thing that I learned. In Ruth 3, and if you have that out here, I'm going to pull that back up. Third thing I learned is even if you don't get it right, God can still make it right. In other words, Boaz was nervous, I think. I think he's like, hey, you're a hottie, but I don't know what to do next, and I don't know if you like me, and I'm old, and you're young, and, you're hunting for somebody probably that's a rich young guy, and I'm not that. And so I think he was a little bit nervous. But what she did when she laid by his feet, even though I don't personally believe anything happened, you can, but I don't believe that happened the way it was said. The issue was, it was said later on in Ruth 3 that it said, and I don't find it for you, but it basically said she was not to tell anybody she was there, which means she did something wrong. You weren't supposed to go down to the threshing floor to go sleep with a guy, even if you were just sleeping next to him. And so what I found kind of neat is it wasn't the right thing for Naomi to give recommendations for Ruth to do. It wasn't right for Ruth to do what she did. It was a risk. But what's great sometimes is if we do things that aren't necessarily the absolute right way to do in our carnal nature, God can still take those wrong things and make something tremendously beautiful. Would you agree? Now, it doesn't give us the right to be dumb, right? And just constantly go, oh, I'm forgiven, so I'm just going to go do whatever the heck I please. No, you can't do that. You're not supposed to do that. You can. You're not supposed to. But the truth is that God can take what maybe shouldn't have been done or isn't being done, and they can make it something beautiful. And so it said in Ruth 3:3, it said, Boaz ate and drank and partied. He partied because it was harvest payday, and everyone was celebrating the end of the harvest season. That's basically bonus time. When you've cleaned up your harvest, you put away your equipment, you've cashed the checks at the bank, there's a big party at the end of every season, whether you're them or a farmer at the end of the year. And so, you know, Ruth, I said, I didn't think so, but here's what I thought about when I thought about that, God can take something that maybe wasn't done correctly and still make it beautiful. You'll see at the end how beautiful it ends up. But here's what I thought was interesting. Taking a deeper look at your relationship, my relationship, our relationships. The first thing I asked myself as I was reading through all this, does it attract others to Christ? In other words, is your marriage, is your relationship, is it attracting other people to Jesus Christ? If it is, that's an incredible start. If you're going, we got a couple things that are lacking, then address those. Address those. Second thing I was asking myself is your of Jesus over every heart and every mind. 'Cause I know there is peace within your presence. I speak Jesus.
I just want to speak the name of Jesus till every dark addiction starts to break, declaring there is hope and there is freedom. I speak Jesus. Your name is power, your name is healing, your name is life. Break every stronghold, shine through the shadows, burn like a fire. I just want to speak the name of Jesus over fear and all anxiety, to every soul captive by depression. I speak Jesus. Your name is power, your name is healing, your name is life. Break every stronghold, shine through the shadows, burn like a fire. Shout Jesus from the mountains, Jesus in the streets, Jesus in the darkness over every enemy. Jesus for my family, I speak the holy name of Jesus. Shout Jesus from the mountains, Jesus in the streets, Jesus in the darkness over every enemy. Jesus for my family, I speak the holy name of Jesus. 'Cause your name is power, your name is healing, your name is life. Break every stronghold, shine through the shadows, burn like a fire. Your name is power, your name is healing, your name is life. Break every stronghold, shine through the shadows, burn like a fire. I just want to speak the name of Jesus over every heart and every mind. 'Cause I know there is peace within His presence. I speak Jesus.
Thank goodness that we have that great guardian redeemer, Jesus Christ. May you all go in peace and serve the Lord. Have a wonderful day.
'Cause your name is power, your name is healing, your name is life. shine through the shadows, burn like a fire. They seal your bound. Your name is healing. Your name is life. And every stronghold shine through the shadows, through like a fire. I just want to speak the name of Jesus over every heart and every mind. 'Cause I know there is peace within your presence. I speak Jesus.
There goes the mic. Well, now we really can't use this one next time. Yeah, that's not good. No, he oh, jeez. It was up here. It was up here, and now it's like all the way tight.